We're live. Hey, everybody. How's it going? It's Thursday evening again, 5:30, a little past 5:30. We had to let Lynn finish. Those middle children can get a little touchy, so we got to let it roll. Hey, you guys, as usual, I'm here with Kevin Brutocao. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, guys.
And I got David Brutocao over here.
Hello.
And we've got Steve Brutocao and Lynn Brutocao out there in the atmosphere talking away in the chat room. Plus, you also got Chris down at the taste room. He's making sure he's ready to take orders. Call him and bug him, just to bug him. He loves that, trust me. So anyway, let's get going with this VT on SIP because I found TP this week. Thank you very much. But the TIP on TT. So let's get started. This week we're going to be talking about Rosé and Pinot Noir. Two different spectrums on the wine scale, to be honest with you, but they're actually a little bit, maybe a little lighter as far as wines go, but they're actually two of my favorite wines that I love to play with the most. This one is kind of my favorite one to drink all the time, and one is my arch nemesis trying to get to make a good wine. It's just Pinot, and that's the way it is. So, excuse me. Anyway, let's start this off. You guys saw some of the videos beforehand. That was a great talk Lynn gave about pruning, the different pruning aspects we use out here in Brutocao Vineyards. So the different varietals, sometimes we prune a little bit differently, as Lynn said, and those pruning techniques, and watching those guys go out there and prune, it's like whenever I was out pruning, I was never as fast as these guys are now. And they're making decisions, they're moving right along. So it's amazing to see how fast they prune and how good a job they do. So like I said, again, our vineyard crew does a great job, and they are so awesome out there doing what they do. And with that, I'd like to give a shout out to my cellar crew, the people at the winery. I mean, I'll tell you what, the cellar guys, they make a lot happen with a small crew, and they do a great job at that too. So it's a team effort here at Brutocao Bliss Family Vineyards. So one of the things I want to talk about for tonight is the two wines plus a little bit of food pairing. Well, actually, you know what? Let's back up a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the barrel stuff. I showed you some barrels earlier on in the barrel staves. I know there's going to be a lot of questions. I actually brought the stave in with me and to kind of show you. It's going to be hard to see here. But this is an old barrel by sitting out in the sun. That's why you got this weather. This is actually a barrel I broke apart to use in my barbecue. I love barbecuing with old oak barrels because you get the wine influence from the wine side, plus you get the smokiness of the oak. And then the best part is you take the head of the barrel, clean it up, and you got a beautiful cutting board. So that works really well. So we'll be talking about a little bit more about barrels later on. We'll get more in depth about the different oak styles with the Pinot because that's where the biggest influence is. So jumping into a little bit about winemaking, you also saw the whole cluster pressing. That was the best forklift operator you've ever seen in your life, I'm going to tell you right now. That guy is awesome. He does a great job. He does it every year. So what happened is that's that block 27 and 29, that Dijon clone we were talking about. They're really small, tight clusters. We dump them into that conveyor, which is belt fed, which I don't know if you guys can see that. And it's really gentle about putting it into the press, and then we press off and take the juice. So remember, I was talking about the Chardonnay, the Brutocao Chardonnay. That's what that was going to be. That's actually the 19 Brutocao Chardonnay Dijon clone portion you saw being pressed off at that point in time. The other things, let's talk a little bit of food then. So tonight, it's a little bit different as far as your food pairings. Rosé is a lot of fun because a lot of people don't think about it as a year-round wine. It's 84 degrees today in Hopland. It's gorgeous spring weather. That's when everybody starts thinking about Sauvignon Blancs and and Rosé. And I'll tell you, I love Rosé year-round because it really is a great food wine, especially the way we make our Rosé. There's a general consensus about Rosés that people, there's blushes and then there's Rosé. So the difference is a blush wine is a wine where usually you add white wine to a red wine to get it to that pink color. That is a blush. Or you actually take a red wine, and some places do this, and you add basically it's charcoal to it, and charcoal pulls color, and you let that drop through a red wine, and it turns it that pinkish color. So those are blush wines. Rosés are made to be a rosé wine from the beginning, and there's a couple different techniques to do that. The first technique is just basically you pick it for rosé, which means you usually pick it at a lower sugar. You bring it in, and you go directly to press, like the whole cluster pressing. Go directly into the press, you start pressing it off, and you press till you get the flavor and the color profile you're looking for. And that's the juice that you pull off and you ferment. That's one way, that's a traditional method. The other traditional method is called drain off. That is the method, well, we actually use both methods. Our main method is drain off, which means that we pick grapes for Brutocao wine. So in the case of the Primitivo portion and the Pinot portion that's in this bottle, we actually pick that for the Brutocao series. And then what we do is we pull some juice off right away, about 12 to 24 hours. We want it to get some tannins and extract some of those other flavor compounds. And it's the tannins that add a lot more structure. And we pull that juice off really about that point in time, and then hold that off to the side and add that to like the dolcetto portion, which we actually picked for rosé. So we actually picked that and put it directly to press and press that off of rosé. Now there's a lot of methodologies out there about rosés. The one I really like to do is I like taking the juice and I put it in a tank and I chill it down to about 40 degrees and I leave it there for about 20 days. Every day we kind of mix it, stir it, get that leaves back up into it. And what it does is there's a phenomenon they started doing in France, and it kind of just binds up the flavors and the aromas being so cold and sitting on that leaves, and it gets all that textural, and just like a wine going through fermentation or sitting on leaves for a long period of time, it gets that very textural, all those tannins, and it kind of locks them in a little bit more. And you get a totally different flavor profile by doing that. And we played with this, and the funny part is what we actually do is we actually drop dry ice into the tank, about a 5-gallon bucket every day. And by doing that, we chill it down, but at the same time, it stirs the tank and mixes it up and then keeps a nice gas coverage on top of that juice, so it preserves it. So we're preserving those flavors and keeping that mixed up. So that's that's our methodology for keeping that aroma and flavor in the wine. Then we'll start a cold, slow fermentation. So this is some of the very earliest wines that maybe, that I bring in sometimes because of the lower because we pick it at a lower sugar, but it's one of the last ones to finish fermenting because we ferment it so cold, we hold it for those 20 days. So that's why. So that's part of what we do. And we add a lot of different varietals in the past because we're doing drain off from all these different varietals. This past year, this wine is mainly dolcetto. I think it's 73% dolcetto. About 18% of it is Primitivo, and then the rest is Pinot Noir. So,
what temperature is the cold fermentation?
Cold fermentation is just like the Sauvignon Blanc, 50 to 55 degrees. So we keep it nice and cold. Anybody out there who wants to use my methodology, I charge $100 an hour for our minimum. So that's okay. Make the check out to Haas Milone, care of Brutocao Cellars. Thank you. So the fun part about this wine is that it's getting the color right. Now, if you remember the 2018, it was really pale. And it had this exact same color until we did what we call cold stabilization right before bottling. And for some reason, when we cold stabilized it, it dropped its color out. And but some people knocked it, but I'll be honest with you, it was a very savory style, very Provençal style is what they would say from France, because it was mainly Primitivo, so you had a lot more of that 24-hour wine being drained off, so you had a lot more tannin and structure, so it was more savory than this wine. This wine you would consider to be a little bit more candied fruit, let's say. But at the same time, you don't have those floral compounds, but you have a lot more fruit compounds in this wine. So nicely chilled rosé, it's the only way to drink rosé. A nice chill on it, let it warm up in a glass a little bit, and coming in, and you get that watermelon candy. It just reminds me when I'm a kid is that little watermelon candy, and then right behind that, it's those white peaches or white nectarine. But it's more of a candied style fruit. So you notice the difference, which means kind of more of it's more sweeter style of fruit. So when you go to smell it. So you get that nice watermelon candy, and then you get that great white peach, white nectarine, which I love going in there. So notice on this wine, we're not going to really be talking about any spices because this wine doesn't see barrel. It's all in a tank. It's all stainless steel. So when you come up, now you get this hint of sweetness. And this wine's really not sweet, but it's that sweeter style fruit pops right there in the beginning. Then the acid's right there holding up, and you get that beautiful kind of like a strawberry tart finish coming through, and a little bit, I think I kind of get a little bit more like a peach also with that strawberry today, but it's just refreshing and delicious. And the surprising thing is the foods this will go with. And I think if I remember correctly, I put on this grilled bison burgers, and I'll be honest with you, I love our rosé with a grilled bison burger. It is awesome, and it's amazing because bison's a little sweeter meat, but it's also got it's got this great kind of sweet fruity flavor in it itself, and it just pairs so well with this. Because you got to think about a great summer afternoon. You know, you got your grilled bison burger on your barbecue on your grill, and you got a great piece of French bread or French roll. Put that on top of it. You got this wine ice cold. It's like 85 degrees outside. Come on, it's awesome. So it makes life great. But here's the other thing. You know what else is great with rosé? Thanksgiving dinner. I tell people this all the time. Roast turkey, gravy, the whole dinner really works well with rosé. It's a little bit different, and people don't think about that. In my family's household, it's roast turkey and raviolis. So this works with the roast turkey quite well, but we're slamming Zinfandel with those raviolis, I'll tell you right now. So that's what's going down. But it still works really well with that roasted poultry. It does quite good. So think about a watermelon salad because of the watermelon in here, and you add some fresh with some fresh white onion in there to kind of spice it up a little bit, and then it follows that flavor profile. So there's a lot of those fresher, like a cold soup like people make during the summer. Those are the types of things these rosés will uplift, and not just ours, but most rosés will. And different varietals change rosés a lot. So a rosé of Pinot Noir is going to be a lot different than a rosé of, like, let's say Dolcetto, which this is, or a rosé of Primitivo, which was last year's Bliss Rosé. So you're going to see a lot of differences in those flavor profiles because of the different grapes. You usually don't see that same consistency from rosés that you do in other varietals. And I guarantee you're never going to see that same consistency with our Bliss Rosé because it's always kind of changing because of the different percentages of the varietals we use. And I'll be honest with you, I think it makes it fun. And I think it makes it really interesting every year. So, pardon me. So this is very Italian-esque rosé, I guess, because it's Primitivo with a lot of Dolcetto. So, and I see that floral white peach coming from the Dolcetto more than anything else, but I see that kind of the brightness of fruit and that richness of flavor coming from the other, especially from the Primitivo, and then that bright finish coming from the Pinot. I also would say that the thing about rosé is that just experiment with it. It's a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a year-round wine in my house. Sitting by a fire in December, it's great. Christmas morning, if you don't have bubbles, rosé works. So trust me, it's a lot of fun. So, and I know there's a lot of people kind of looking forward to tonight because of rosé, and there's a lot of rosé fans out there. Yeah, Bernie, I'm thinking of you. All right, so that's our rosé. The only other thing probably I would say about rosé is that it's probably one of the funner wines to make for me, honestly, other than Coro. It's just a lot of fun because you get to do a lot of different things and play around, and the wine's always like, you got to be on top of it, but it is a lot of fun because so many people enjoy it. And just think about the other thing too is the way we make our rosé. It has tannin and structure. Just because it's 2020 doesn't mean the 2018 rosé is bad. Our rosés seem to go for 3-4 years very easily past the vintage. So just remember that because there's tannin and structure in it, that's why they're so food friendly and they last so much longer. All right, Pinot Noir. Switching gears, like really bad segue. So our Pinot, this is our Anderson Valley Pinot Noir. So Pinot is, the barrels to me are very important for Pinot Noir because Pinot Noir is a little bit more of a delicate fruit in red wine. And I don't want to overpower it with the wrong oak or too much oak, and it's easy to do. Especially our Pinot Noir, which is very Burgundian in style. It's a little bit, it's a little lighter, fresher. It doesn't have it's not a huge, big Pinot Noir like a lot of Anderson Valley Pinot Noirs are. It's a little bit lighter in structure, and that's what the vineyards give us, and so that's how we make it. We don't want to push it and try to make it more. We don't want to add a ton of Syrah or Malbec to it to make it bigger. We want to keep it that way. We want the vineyard to dictate what the wines are. So there's a couple of different things about Pinot also, not only barrels, but clones. And you'll hear us talk about clones. You've heard me talk about clones before. With our Pinot, this has the Pommard clone in it. It also has the 115 clone. It also has the 777 clone and the 667 clone, which probably means nothing to 90% of the people watching this right now, but it sounds like I know what I'm doing. So that's why I tell you every time. Clones, the easiest way to explain a clone is that I think in Pinot Noir itself, I think there's something like 50 different clones of Pinot Noir. And what that means is, like, the easiest way for me to explain it is everybody knows labs, right? You got a black lab, a golden lab, Labrador retriever, chocolate lab. Well, they're all Labradors, they're all dogs, but each one is different and they all have different personalities. You know, every lab owner you talk to, especially somebody who has a golden lab, always tells you that a chocolate lab is mentally challenged and crazy. Black labs are always the best lab ever to have because they're the most mellow and the best hunters, you know. So they're all a little bit different, but they're all dogs and they're all labs. So it's the same with Pinot, even though they're all Pinot Noir, but they all come from different areas and they have different characteristics. The 777 clone is really kind of known for being a little bit of a bigger, bolder style of Pinot Noir. 667's got a little more spice to it. Pommard clones are known for being a little bit more floral, aromatic style. And also some of the Pommard clones, there's more than one, can actually mimic the 667 and the 777. So it's like you go back and forth, but it's also growing conditions and climates. Anderson Valley is a great area for these clones to grow. And we've also found that they do very well for us over here in Hopland. We have a couple of cooler areas that actually works pretty well for it. We prune those vines so they cool climate style. They're not quite, it's a little bit warmer over here, but still they produce some pretty decent Pinot Noir. Different, you gotta remember this, 2 different areas, 2 different climates. Next would be barrel selection. So if you saw the videos beforehand, and we'll put them back up again, you'll see them on our YouTube channel also for Brutocao Cellars. So we use 2 coopers. We use Rousseau, which is a Burgundian cooper, and Claude Gelée. Claude Gelée is another Burgundian cooper out of France. I've been working, actually, Claude Gelée, Laurent Gelée taught me how to be a cooper when I was at a different facility back then. Anyway, so what we look for in a barrel is we want a Burgundy barrel. We want a barrel that's made by people from Burgundy, I believe, makes the best Pinot Noir barrels. Because the way they age the barrels, and they've been doing it for hundreds and hundreds of years, and they are made to enhance Pinot Noir. Does not mean that other coopers don't make great barrels for Pinot Noir. For me and my winemaking style, that's the style I like, and that's the barrels that work the best for me. So the Gelées, for the Gelée, I have with your Vosges barrel from Vosges Forest. Vosges is way up by Alsace, up by the Germany border. So very northern part of France, very cold, very tight grained. And then also the Chantelois, I know I butchered that name, I do it every time, Forest, which is south of that, and it's a little bit above the Brutocao Forest, so it's more towards the center of France, but still a little colder region. So the funny thing about is that Gelée barrels give you a lot of, I would say, roasted spices. So you know the difference if you take a spice and just out of your cupboard and you throw it in a grinder or you just throw it in your dish. it's a different flavor profile than when if you put them in a skillet and you heat them up and you kind of caramelize it a little bit more. So there's a little bit more of not smokiness, but a toastiness to the spice rack that you get from a Gelée barrel. So that cinnamon's a little bit more, for lack of a better term, a little more smoky, but that roasted cinnamon. Whereas Rousseau, their barrels, which is the video barrel that I showed you, that is their Burgundy barrel for Pinot. It's a custom barrel that they make. They don't tell you what the toast is. They don't tell you what the forest is. But over their years of being coopers, this is the barrel that they've developed for Pinot Noir, and it works great. This is the barrel when you see or hear me talk about Christmas spice, this is the barrel that pumps it full of Christmas spice in the Pinot Noir. It has that nutmeg, cinnamon. Just think about, you know, when you're a kid, waking up, going out, and your mom's making, you know, Christmas cookies, you know, and you can smell, or just whatever, and you can smell all that cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves combined. That's what I mean. And it's kind of, it is a combination. It's not like just one, but it is a combination. That's that barrel. Plus a little bit of that vanilla bean, you know, a little vanilla bean on top of it, so you get that. All right?
Haas, will you explain to everyone the meaning of slow lopen vineyard?
Sure. How deep do you want to go with slow lopen? All right, slow lopen. So if you notice all of our vineyards, Contento, Feliz, Bliss, right? So slow lopen is a term of, well, it's a language, it's called bootling over in Anderson Valley. And slow lopen means easygoing guy. So that's what slow lopen means. So bootling is a language that they used to, they developed so they could talk amongst the bright lighters that nobody else would know what they're talking about. Bright lighters are city folk. All right. So that's what we're talking about. And I'm pretty sure the person that asked this question wants me to tell the burlap story, but we'll get there. All right. So anyway, so that's where this language, it's very simple language, you know, a whirly dome's a helicopter, a horn of Z's, you know, like the horn of plenty, it's a horn of Z's, that's a cup of coffee. All right, and then a telephone's called a Bucky Walter. Guess the name of the guy in Anderson Valley who was the first one to get a telephone. Yeah, John Smith. No, anyway, it's Bucky Walter. So there are some other terms in bootling. One of them is called burlapping. Burlapping came because the story goes, you know, don't hold me to this, but this is the story that I heard, that basically the guy that owned the general store in town in Boonville hired some guy who was coming through. And when he was coming through, you know, back in those days, they always had big stacks of burlap in the back for sewing up the wool and so forth. The store owner actually had a very beautiful looking daughter, and one day caught the employee and his daughter on top of the burlap sacks, hence the name burlap, and you can use your imagination from there. All right. The best part is an old family friend of ours actually has that license plate called burlapping, and you know, DMV has no clue what that meant, and he got it on his license plate. So hence bootling, slow loping, burlapping, and that's enough of that one. All right. So moving forward, let's taste this Pinot. So when you bring it up, you kind of get you're getting some spice in that, and you're getting that kind of a clove. Almost reminds me of like cinnamon sticks. Not quite that Christmas spice, but you see what I'm talking about. It's there. There's some nice like dried cherry. And remember I talked about before about dried fruits. This is one of them. So cherry, kind of cherryish. Not much cola, a little bit of cola on the back end. So cherry cola is a descriptor you hear a lot with Pinot Noir, believe it or not. But I get more of a dried cherry. You know, it's fitting I just told the burlap story because we always argued what flavor profile should Burgundy and Pinot be. And a good friend of mine, Mary Mackle, we always went back and forth over Pinots. And we always said, you know what it is? It's sensual. It's a mouthfeel that is sensual. It's an elegance about Pinot Noir, and that's that Burgundian style. And it has that kind of it's not silkiness, but it's a lushness that comes through. And you get those brighter fruits coming in, and you still get that kind of that cherry, but there's the spiciness of the barrel. And you get that lushness, and it kind of wraps around. And you can see where a nice piece of fatty duck breast or frogua on toast points would just go so well with something like this. It's got some nice bright acidity. It's got some nice fruit profiles on the back end. And you can see that lushness that I'm talking about. Anderson Valley is known for being a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder. And that's where the back end of this kind of kicks in. You get that boldness. You don't get the big sensual finish that you get usually from a Burgundian style. And you get those grapes kind of showing their terroir. They're showing you what they have at that point in time. When I pair Pinot Noir, I always go to duck. I always think about duck. And I'll be honest with you, one of my favorite meals I had, I was lucky enough for me and my wife to venture to Alsace and to have choucroute de canard, which is basically duck and sauerkraut, which was awesome. So the sauerkraut with the duck was just crazy, and it's a duck confit or whatever. So I like any duck dish at all when it comes to Pinot Noir. Even curried duck, believe it or not, I think is really good. The other thing too, anything with the cherry reduction sauce, as I put in the notes for you guys, works really well. Trout. Especially trout when you throw it over an open fire, freshly caught out of a lake, some lemon and onion on top of it. God, can't beat that. Or just fried in the cast iron skillet. It's all good. Getting a little hungry over here. Goat cheese, any type of beet and goat cheese salad with Pinot Noir is another great sampling. What Kevin told me tonight, it was marinara sauce that he had made. He says, "Oh my God, the Pinot was so good with that." So hey, it's not like we're Italian or anything around here. So
mushroom marinara.
Mushroom marinara. Yeah. You gotta love seeing somebody getting jabbed by their wife. Anyway, yes. Hey, it's live TV. Everything's fair, Karen. Karen's here tonight. Say hi, Karen.
Hi.
Yeah, there she is. Anyway, your grandma liked that. See, say hi. Say hi to your grandma. Yeah. So anyway, to all of our to all the Post family back there in Arkansas, how you guys all doing? Glad to see you. Hear you guys are coming, seeing you guys are here, so thank you so much. Anyway, so that's kind of the Pinot Noir, and that's where it is to do that. Today, we actually bottled a new Pinot Noir for the Brutocao family vineyards. We're actually bottling an inland Pinot. We're calling it our Home Ranches Pinot. It's a 2018. You'll probably see it in the marketplace maybe 6 months or so, 6 months to a year. Again, when I was telling you how we're finding that we have some really nice Pinot areas here in the Hopwood area with our vineyards, and so we're doing something like that. Tomorrow, it's Anderson Valley Pinot Day. We're actually going to be bottling the 2018 version of this wine tomorrow. Look for my Instagram account. There'll probably be some videos of us bottling Pinot. That's at Hospitality #Winemakers Life. So check us out, and then if you don't see it there, you'll definitely see it on the Brutocao Cellars Instagram and Facebook, because Kevin snaps those up and puts them over. That's pretty much where we're at right now as far as the wines go. I just want to remind everybody that coming up, we're going to be doing Brutocao Torrent and Reserve Merlot are next week. So we're going to get into some different barrels next week, a little bit more, and we're going to really look at the water, the creeks that are around us. We'll be looking at the soils a little bit more and talking about those. So we're into the happy hour portion. Whatever you guys want to talk about now, bring it on, and we can solve world peace. What's next? Let's do this thing. Come on.
Back to the Pinot real quick. What's the cellaring of the Pinot?
So all Brutocao Reds are 18 months in barrel. So we bring them in. So the Pinot comes in. Well, let's see. Pinot's a little bit different, and this is the reason why. I always have the barrels ready for Pinot as soon as we harvest it. And it comes in, and we ferment it. And if you saw the videos, you saw the little 1-ton fermenters that we put the Pinot in and punch them down. From there, it'll go to a tank to where it's homogenized, you know, so basically it's all mixed together, it's one flavor profile, and then we'll put that into its actual barrels. So we'll add the new barrels right then and there. This is happening beginning of October, where the other red wines don't see their new barrels till after we've racked them a couple times, and that's probably late November or December before we do that. We don't bring those barrels in until later. The primary reason is that these are French oak barrels that we use here, so that's why it's 100% French oak, about 25% new. So then it sits in a barrel for about anywhere from 15 to 18 months. We're trying to shorten it up a little bit. I'm finding that the wines are tasting better and are better for bottling them a little bit earlier. So we're trying to get it a little bit closer to 12 to 14 months and not that 14 to 18 months. So it's kind of in a transition right now. It helps savor that fruit. We don't lose any fruit that way by doing that. So that's why we're moving that direction.
And how about the ageability of Pinot? I mean, it's great right now.
Well, you got a 16 right now, and this is going to drink fine for another 5 years easily. So, I mean, Pinots age. They really do, especially in the style. Remember, like I said last week, it's about balance. A balanced wine is a wine that ages. So that's what we're looking for. So, yeah, so if you purchase this wine right now, I think it's just starting to drink good. I think it'll start drinking great in about another year. Our Pinots typically take about 2 to 3 years after we bottle them before they really start showing well. And a lot of Burgundian wines are that way that I've had. Red Burgundies, they usually wait 5 years before they really start drinking them because that's when they start showing their best. So I think this is close. Like I said, it's got about another year yet, and I think you're really going to see it's going to be a lot better. And it's just, as it ages, it just tastes better and better every time.
Great. We have a question about the 18 rosé versus the 19 and the color difference between the two.
Got to switch drinking hands. So this is more of a pinkish salmon, where the other one was that really dulled salmon color. The main reason why was, I'll be honest with you, 18 was exactly this color last year. When we went through cold stability, which means we actually dropped the temperature of the tank down to about 30 degrees to throw the crystals out a little bit and to settle the wine, and we had bentonite for heat stability, which takes the proteins out of the wine. When we took the proteins out of the wine, it swapped its color, and all of a sudden the color dropped on it. So that was just a phenomenon that can happen. Anyway, so that's the reason why the color difference is. And there are actually they're different wines too, so that's the other reason why.
Back to the aging of Pinot, how do you recommend aging red wines?
My liver, but probably the best way to age red wines is laying them down on their side. So you always want them down their side so the cork's wet. I don't really recommend putting them upside down. You can, it's not going to hurt anything. I like them laying like this. There are 2 little pinholes in these caps. That's mainly made so we can take them off or put them on the bottle. But it allows the cork to breathe a little bit because of that. So I like them laying on their side. And then it's also nice because when you pull it out, you don't have all that sediment up here. So I guess you put it out this way. That's why there's a punt in the bottom of the bottle. That's for sedimentation. So if they're laying on their side, the sediment's going to all lay here. So when you roll it over slowly, you're not going to have a ton of sediment sitting around the neck and around the cork. So then that way you get a better pour on the wine. If you don't have a cellar, put them in the back of your closet. That's the best place to do it. The biggest thing about aging any wine is constant temperature. You want it in an area that doesn't fluctuate heavily and out of sunlight. So as long as you can keep the temperature relatively stable in an area, which is usually the back of your closet because it doesn't see a lot of air movement, or in a refrigerated or temperature controlled cellar, that's the reason why. But yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Okay. When they're on their side, do you need to roll them or anything like that?
No, you don't want to roll them. You just leave them alone. And sedimentation is natural. All wines will throw sediment. Even after we filter them and do what we do, they're always going to throw some type of sedimentation. So if you roll it, it's not going to help you at all. All it's going to do is make it worse. You actually want that sedimentation to kind of harden up as much as possible. So when you do pick them up, and you know, it's when they're laying on their side and you bring them out, you know, you don't want to just take it, just flip it up really quick. You don't want to do that. You want to bring them, when you bring them up, if you can, take them out to somewhere where there's some light and use a flashlight. That's why you always see these guys using a candle. They put a candle behind their flashlight. And then when you roll it up, you can kind of see, even in a dark glass like this, you can actually see the sedimentation. So you just roll it slowly so that sedimentation slowly slides down the bottle. It will mix a little bit, but it doesn't roll a lot. It doesn't mix completely in the wine. It really doesn't hurt the wine. It just is a, you know, it's like a plate of food always tastes better if it looks good, right? Same thing. So
how about light in the cellar?
No sunlight. So there's a reason why this is called a flint bottle. It's a clear bottle. You don't want this in sunlight, right? Because it's going to bake the wine. Sunlight, the UV rays are going to make a difference on it. That's why traditionally we have bottles like this, which are called antique green. It's to keep sunlight out. That's why Rieslings are in an amber bottle traditionally. That's why champagnes or sparkling wines traditionally are in a very dark green bottle, because UV light, sunlight actually can damage the wine.
If someone has a wine fridge, what's a good average temperature for red and white?
I'd probably keep it around, I don't know, 62, 64, somewhere in there. I mean, that's where we try to keep our tanks in the tank room. We keep them about right there. So it's just steady. It's more about being steady. Even if you're up higher, you know, around 65, 68, as long as the temperature's steady, you're okay. Once you start getting above 70 degrees, that's when the wine starts warming up and expanding more. That's when you're going to push corks. You're going to have wine coming out, and it's going to be ugly.
Haas, you talked about Burgundian style of Pinot. What's the other style, and how do they compare?
So Burgundian style is kind of, it's more the traditional style. It's a little bit lighter. It's more, and I mean lighter is that it's not, well, let's see. So Burgundian style is the wine is a little bit lighter. It's not big and it's not overpowering. Where different styles like California, and Anderson Valley is one of them, you get a more richer, complex Pinot Noir. So they're a little bit bigger, a little bit bolder. And so that's what I mean about, that's more of that's Anderson Valley style. You get the same thing in San Ynez. They're not quite there. They're not the same. They don't have that same spice character, that same fruit character, but they're a little bit bolder than in Burgundy. And it's because Burgundy is, you know, in Burgundy, they don't get a lot of sugar. You know, they have a lot more acid than they do sugar. So it's a ripening process. So we're out here, we get a lot of sugar, so we can make bigger, bolder wines. Where in Burgundy, they're not the same. So they're a little bit lighter stylistically. It's not a bad thing. It really isn't. I mean, think about a rosé is a lighter style wine of its brethren, and that's because it's usually it's a lower alcohol, lower sugar wine when you start off with. So that's kind of the similarities to it. Kevin needs glasses. That's all I can say. Kevin needs glasses. You know, I'm sitting here just, you know, hey, whatever. Hello.
Do you want to talk? We kind of mentioned it last week, but on aging wines and you know, I always say people like wines at different stages. Everyone has their own style, and so maybe you like really aged wines, maybe you like younger wines. Do you want to speak to aging in that way?
Well, here's a fun thing to do, and it's I have to give my brother props for this one. It's kind of a thing he started a long time ago, and we talked about. And, buy 6 bottles of wine you like. You buy 6 bottles. You buy the first bottle is the one you're going to drink that night, and then you take 2 of those bottles and you're going to put them away somewhere that you're not going to touch them for 5 years, 10 years. Take the other bottles and pop them once every 6 months. Get a couple of years out of that. And what that does for you is it shows you where the wine's aging and how the wine goes, and kind of shows you your flavor profile, what you prefer. And it lets you see that as you're drinking wines as they age, how they change and you try to remember, if you can remember what they were, and they do change, and you say, oh, I really like this so much better now than I did back then because I like this. There's something about it that's different. I like wines at all different stages. I'll be honest with you. I don't have a preferred stage of the wine because I like wines for what they are at that time and that moment. Wine is a very moment-driven thing. A great bottle of sparkling wine on the coast, on the Mendocino coast, on a beautiful sunny spring morning with the waves crashing is going to be the best tasting sparkling wine you've ever had in your life with your loved one, right? It's not going to be the same as if you're in the ghetto back alley of San Francisco, down on Market Street, popping a bottle of Ripple. It's a little different, So think about the experience. And that's the thing about wine, is wine is an experience, and it's always fun to experience with somebody else, and especially somebody you love or somebody, or just great friends. It's always an experience, and it's always about food and family and fun and friendship. So, you just got to find what you like.
Haas, what's the difference in flavor profile between the Anderson Valley Pinots and the Hopland Pinots?
So Anderson Valley, a little bit more, I would say it's got a little bit more richness on the back palate, probably a little bit darker on the fruit profile because of Anderson Valley. I would think that the wines that we're seeing over here are a little brighter. As far as that goes, the finish is not quite as lingering as the Anderson Valley because it doesn't have that bigger richness, but it has a different style of finish. So it has more of a fruit style finish than a spice finish. Think about because that's why a lot of people add Syrah or Malbec to Pinots, is because they want that bigger kind of spicier finish, and we call those Pinots on steroids. So that's what we're seeing more in the inland. It's a little bit brighter fruit than what we're seeing in Anderson Valley.
Steve says dried cherries are amazing with Pinot.
Yeah, they are. Dried cherries are great, and almonds. You start popping almonds and dried cherries because the dried cherry is really going to bring out that cherry cola in this when you do that. Just like just like watermelon. Watermelon's going to do that. Watermelon salad, with that vinaigrette, it's going to do the same for the rosé. You're going to see that kind of brightness come through and doing that.
And just to mention on the Hopland Pinot versus Anderson Valley, our Bliss Pinot is Hopland. So, very different wine programs, but that is from our Hopland ranch here.
Yeah, we're pruning a little bit different for the Brutocao sections of the Pinot. So it's not going to be the same. It's definitely going to be different than that. But yeah, that's kind of showing you the fruit profile that's there, and we're enhancing that and giving it more style and adding. It actually goes to barrel and sees new oak, so it sees some of the new oak that we're using on this Pinot, also on the Anderson Valley, playing back and forth. Let's see, what else was there? That's pretty much all I've got for you guys tonight.
Got a couple more questions coming in. Where are the best growing regions in California for Pinot, and what are some of your favorites?
Hopland. Next. No, I'm just kidding. It depends on the style you like. Again, like I said, Santa Barbara, Santa Ynez are great. They make some great Pinots down there. Anderson Valley is one of the most renowned regions in the world here in Mendocino County for Pinot. And you got to remember, Mendocino County, we can grow so many different styles of grapes and so many different things. It depends on what you like. McMinnville, the Oregon Pinots, again, it's another different style. And, and I love those Pinots too. I'll be honest with you, my favorite Pinot is always free. So it doesn't, when it comes to that. You have to appreciate for where they come from. They're going to be different, and you got to like that. I'll be honest with you, some of the Carmel Valley, actually, right on Monterey, that little area in there grows some great. So it's that cooler growing region. They have some really nice Pinots in there. So it's kind of a fun area, but they're different stylistically, and then, red Burgundies, coming out of Beaune in that area are really great, and Côte d'Aron. So it's always, it's stylistically what you got to love them for what they are. And if you find a style you like more than the other, I'm always going to love Mendocino County Pinot Noirs better than I do anywhere else in the world, just because I'm a Mendocino County guy, born and raised here, and I think we do some of the best fruit in the world. So,
Can you talk about Candelabra a little?
So Candelabra is a program where we did more vineyard site selection. We pruned it a lot differently. We looked at, we sang to the vines in the middle of the night. We made them calm down, tucked them in type of thing. That's an old Nebbiolo joke. Anyway, so Candelabra was, our reserve Pinot program used to be about barrel selection, where we upped that game and took it to site selection in the vineyards with some of the clones and with barrel selection at the same time. So the Candelabra is definitely that bigger, bolder Anderson Valley style. And that's what we were looking for, because we did so much Burgundy and we were always this Burgundy style. We wanted to elevate that up to a different style and change it. So that's where Candelabra came from, and that's what the Candelabra is. That's a Pinot that's really going to age a lot longer than Anderson Valley, because it is a little bit bigger wine, and the way we make it is a little bit different because it is in a barrel a little bit longer. But it's some of our more premium Pinot Noir grapes that we have.
And I think that 2014 that's released now really shows that bigger style that you're talking about.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
It's really good.
Yeah.
If you're at a party or wedding reception and you're drinking different wines, what order are you going for through the night?
Beer, then wine. That's usually how it usually runs at a wedding. It just depends what they're serving. A lot of times,
well, of course they're serving Brutocao.
Yeah. Well, of course they have to, or Bliss. Bliss. It's a wedding. They might go with the Bliss route. Usually when I'm out and about, it's a function like that, I'm usually drinking reds. I'll be drinking the red most of the night, because usually most wedding food needs the red wine to kill the caterer's food. But no, I like red wines. And so
do you worry so much about going from I just had a cab, now I want to go back to Quadriga maybe?
Nah, not really. I don't worry about bouncing back and forth. I mean, honestly, if you're at a wedding to be a wine connoisseur, you're at the wrong place. You know what I mean? It's like, come on. You're there to celebrate that couple and that day, or if it's an anniversary party or whatever it is, birthday party, it's part of the celebration. And I mean, I've had people do that to me more than once. I'll just have had I'll just had a glass of Cabernet, and they'll go, oh, try this Chardonnay. It's the greatest thing ever. I'm like, well, okay. That's what you do. And you take a sip of the Chard first, you rinse your mouth out, let it flush your palate, and then you come back to it and look at it, as objectively as you can at midnight. So it all depends, I don't worry about, if it's a real sit-down style plated dinner, they're probably going to have a wine served with each of that portion, and you just kind of follow that along. And then afterwards, you go, I like that wine the best tonight. That's the wine I'm going to be drinking. So that's how it works.
Okay, silly question, but do you use that squisher thingy? I think we're talking about the wine pumps to take that air out of an open bottle, and how long will that be good for?
I don't. My wife does. We just got one. Honestly, yeah, it'll buy you a day. I'll be honest with you. The best way, I mean, once you open a bottle like this and you pour wine out of it, you pretty much introduce oxygen to the wine. It's oxygen. There's no getting it out of there. All you're doing is preserving what's left to hopefully doesn't oxidate it anymore. When you open, so what we'll do is we'll take a bottle, open a bottle, pour a little bit out so it's maybe down to about right here. Put your thumb over it and then roll it back and forth. We call that oaky oxidation, because what that does is kind of like decanting it. It really opens it up. So the vacuum systems, while you're pumping them out, pump out the air, you put it in your fridge. It's going to gain you an extra day or two. But after that, that's about it. If you want a wine to last any longer than a day or two in your fridge, you have a drinking problem. You need to drink more. Otherwise, you need a Corvin, so you can just take a glass at a time out of it. It's a $300 Corvin, and then you can pour it out. What it does is it injects gas into the bottle as you pour the wine out, so it's not putting air in it. That'll get you a couple of weeks. So if you're somebody who only wants like a glass or two glasses, that's the system you want to do. Because even taking if you took and put like nitrogen or argon in the bottle, which is those wine saver canisters you can buy, spray inside of it. That's what that is. It's a mixed neutral gas. That'll maybe get you 4 days instead of 2 days where the little vacuum system is.
Does Mendocino use the Brett style of Pinot Noir?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Does Mendocino use a Brett style of Pinot Noir, or just
That's a
introducing-
winemaker thing. It
Yeah.
depends on the winemakers. There's winemakers who just, Carol Shelton will scream her wild head off if she finds one teensy ounce of Brett anywhere in her facility. And there's other winemakers who love a little bit of what we call the French funk in their wine because it actually is an aromatic and it actually does push and elevate things. I try to stay away from it as much as possible as far as our wines are because it's not a desirable thing for the American wine consumer, I'll be honest with you. In Europe, they're a lot more understanding and they understand that that is not actually always a bad thing. But like too much Brett is where you start getting that barnyard manure, Band-Aid. Yeah, that's a bad thing. A little, it goes a long ways, but that actually can help enhance the wine's flavor and aroma, but it's not going to last as long because a little bit of oxygen and what happens is we call a bloom of Brett will take off unless you've sterile filtered to make sure all the Brett is out of the wine as you're bottling it. So, so you got to be careful. It's a double-edged sword.
And I just realized I missed one from earlier when you're talking about storing wine on its side.
Mm-hmm.
What about screw caps?
Doesn't matter.
You don't need to.
Nah. Usually anything, I'll be honest with you, anything a screw cap, screw caps will last about, 10 years probably if you want, on most wines. But you can still store them on their sides. It doesn't matter. It's just if there's sedimentation. But most people, when you buy a screw cap wine, you're not buying it to lay down for 5 years, 10 years.
With everything going on in the world right now, are you worried about getting crews to help with harvest?
I worry about crews helping with harvest no matter what's going on in the world, I'll be honest with you. There's a large labor shortage in agriculture overall. Hence why we do a lot of machine harvesting, which thank God we can and we're geared up for, but we still have a lot of tonnage that has to be hand harvested. So yeah, there's always an issue with that, trying to find crews in a timely manner to pick the grapes for you. So yeah. Kevin's scrolling madly.
Someone wants to know if you're a master somm.
No, not even close. I am a podunk winemaker from the cellar. So yeah.
Do you have any tips on people kind of honing in on their tasting abilities?
Taste lots of wine. That's how a somm becomes a somm. They just drink a lot of wine and they get into it. There's people who are super tasters. Most super tasters are females. That means they have more taste buds in their tongue than normal people do. So they can really get those idiosyncrasies, taste these different things in wine. I taste very generalized flavor profiles. I don't get, I'm not going to tell you the minerality of the dirt that it came from this region, but that's what somms do. And the only reason they do that is because they taste so many wines and there's so many nuances and they're taking all these notes on those wines. So my thing is if your basic tasting notes come from your childhood memories. So what I would do is that if you want to, if like I'm telling you right now that there's cherries in this, you can taste cherries, get that dried cherry. Smell the cherries and then taste the wine. Look at tasting notes like that way. And you'll kind of will see the similarities, get some spices. There are tasting kits where they actually have aroma profiles in bottles where you can smell that and go to the wine. No, that's not it. That's not it. The other thing, which is also a big trick that people do, is that if I'm telling you right now this wine smells like a 1957 Ford right off the factory line, you're going to go, oh, that's what that aroma is. It's very subjective. It's crazy, but it's true. It's a very subjective thing because people are scared of what they don't know sometimes. It's like, oh my God, I don't know that, so that must be true because he's telling me that. When there's an aroma in there, and if I smell one thing, you might smell something else. Me and Lydia, my assistant winemaker, we argue all the time. I don't smell that. Yeah, that's right there. No, that's what it smells like. No, it doesn't. It's like an old married couple. But it's because we smell wines differently and we taste them differently. And that's why our profiles are so wide sometimes on our wines because of our two different flavors profiles that we smell. It makes for a better wine. So It's seriously, it's just drink more and enjoy more and don't stress over it. If you smell something great, that's awesome. If you don't smell something great, you still like it, that's awesome. So, you know. Okay. All right. Well, looks like we pretty much wrapped this one up again. Hey, it's another 1 hour show. Look at us, man. We're kicking it. So, hey, just again, I always want to remind everybody the only difference between a connoisseur and a wino is a connoisseur takes a brown paper bag off the bottle when he's done drinking it. Enjoy your wines. Enjoy your life. Have fun, everybody. And thank you once again from the Brutocao family. So this is Milone, your winemaker from Brutocao Bliss Family Vineyards. Salute and enjoy.